cannot believe this is episode 9.
Yeah. hmm
How do we get here?
I don't know. Things kind of happened fast. Slow.
Fast, slow, craziness. We're
Yeah,
here. It's
we
exciting.
are. And for those who are, maybe joining us for the first time, maybe the title caught your eye. We have 8 other wonderful episodes for you to dive into, to learn about. And this is one of our last episodes for the season. After this, we have one more. So stay tuned for our finale, which is on the 21st. Um, but yeah, so all of that to be said, episode 9. Episode 9.
Episode 9. Do you want to introduce the title for today? What we're going to be talking
You know,
about?
yeah, I think the people demand it. So, episode 9 is Field Guide to Self Attunement, Breaking the Spell of Imposter Syndrome.
I just got like diabolical. I was like, in my mind, I was imagining like,
The
what is this called?
spell. Like jazz hands over here.
Yeah.
They're like maniacal, like evil little fingers. So
um,
Jen, I'm assuming the breaking the spell might be bringing some of this, wizardly energy.
I mean,
Uh,
actually, it is though, because that's really what it feels like when you finally conquer what
mhm.
you feel like is holding you back, what you were so afraid of. It's like, I shall smite this and move forward. Like, you just feel like so empowered.
Yeah,
Um,
trusting your magic, trusting the power that you have.
yeah.
Yeah. So as we do, we kind of ease into the episode with a little definition. But before that, a little check-in, a little hello and a little hi. How are you doing today? Hello.
Hello and hi. I'm doing good. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
This is a fun topic for me. I feel this is like an undergrad. I did a project on this, and then I did it again in grad school. And I work with a lot of people in the business world. Um,
Yeah.
Also, a lot of parents, right? Like this talking about feeling like you are an imposter within the life that you've set up for yourself is something that a lot of people go through, and I'm passionate about working with my clients on this. So I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling excited. How are
So
you?
all of this to say, Jen will be, I would say, maybe the expert today of this conversation, being that this is a niche area, it sounds like, something that she's passionate about. So you're all in for a treat learning from the master.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay. So I see why you whenever I do this to Ronnie, Ronnie's always like no way. So now I get it because that's a lot of pressure.
but all of this to say, like myself, I have my own experience with imposter syndrome. I think it's an innately human experience. So if you find yourself struggling with this, know that you are not alone. Um, and oftentimes, it's not necessarily all bad that we're experiencing this imposter syndrome. And we'll kind of get into the duality of imposter syndrome and how it can, push us or deter us, depending on how it's coming up. Um, but I did not check in. My check in is I'm doing well. It is my birth week. It is Gemini season. It's Pride. Like, come on. Like, the worlds are colliding, aligning, whatever you want to say, but it's all here. So I'm feeling pretty damn good, to say the least.
Yes.
um, but yeah, so we're going to start by defining this. We have the definition from Oxford Languages. Jen, might you take it away?
Yeah, I actually like Oxford this time.
All
Proud
right.
of them. They're getting their stuff together.
We love it.
So they define imposter syndrome as a noun. I agree. Good start. Um,
I
and
concur.
they I concur. And they describe it as the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. Yeah, good job. I just think that the definition is a little funny, like a little haha. People suffering from imposter syndrome may be at risk of anxiety. That's their
Yeah.
example
Yeah,
sentence.
literally.
I was like, oh, really? Who would have guessed?
You
Uh,
don't say. You don't say.
yeah. And when we talk about this anxiety, um, it reminds me a lot of cognitive dissonance. And when I learned about cognitive dissonance, my professor rubbed his fists together like a brain because you can put your hands together, it looks like a brain, and
Mhm.
rubs his fists together. because it really is like you're bumping up against yourself and you're feeling this friction about what to do. And a lot of times that friction can cause us to turn to our flight, freeze, or fawn response.
Mm,
Um, and we basically just end up being stuck. We don't make the progress or step toward or enter who we really are and like what we're capable of because of this dissonance, this friction that we're experiencing that's causing us to feel like we're imposters within the lives that we've created for ourselves.
mm. And like just hearing that, like I'm hoping that you can all understand because like I'm hearing that and I'm like, yeah, like that's so hard. That's like such a difficult space to be in where you are being triggered by your own experience of the world that you've created or the life that's kind of, began to develop around you. I think it's also really important to notice, like, if you find that you are someone who goes between like high anxiety and then like periods of numbness, like that's pretty clear that your window of tolerance is, in some way you're out of it. Like you are not in your window of tolerance, and that's not self-failing either. It's just giving you information about how this imposter syndrome is truly interacting with you and your systems.
Mhm.
Um, so yes, all of the compassion for you as we work through this. Um, Something to keep in mind, I would say, as we are diving into this conversation, is definitely some curiosity, playfulness, kindness toward yourself. I know it's hard to cultivate that. Sometimes, if it's difficult to cultivate love toward yourself, you might envision how you take care of a fluffy pet that you like, or how you would love on a friend and try to turn some of that toward yourself because the capacity to do it's already there. We're just not giving it to ourselves.
Mhm.
So, with that being said, Jen, do you have like any personal experiences or do you have any like tales you might be able to share with us about how other people might be experiencing imposter syndrome?
Sure. I won't share anything specific, but I can tell a tale.
Yeah, cool.
Um, so let's say you are super excited. You are graduating high school.
Mm,
You're applying to colleges, and you don't get into any school, but you get into one.
mm.
It's your top choice,
Hell yeah.
right? Okay, so that's one way people might think of it. If there's maybe self efficacy present or self worth is doing well. Um, But if you're feeling down on yourself, you didn't get into any schools, you open this letter, a common response might be, "This must be a mistake.
Mm,
Why me? Are they sure? Why is this top school seeing my value, but all these other ones did not?"
mm,
So now imagine how you show up to the space. Do you let yourself go, or do you say, "I'm too much of a failure, or I'm not ready. These 11 other schools didn't think I was ready." Yeah. Yeah, but if you are doing that college track, right, that 4-year degree is like what you have your eyes on. Um,
yeah.
and even though you do have that acceptance letter, your eyes are off the ball. You are out of, you shift from being in tune with what you envision for yourself into, I don't think I belong in those spaces anymore. And you see
Mm.
yourself and your dreams from the outside instead of yourself being within it.
Yeah, it's like you are no longer in the driver's seat. You are kind of looking from outside of the car.
Yeah.
Who's in the
Mm.
driver's seat? Who knows? I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows? Jesus, take the wheel.
Absolutely. Um, and I think this is a beautiful example. It's really interesting to look at it from my own perspective. Um, and we can kind of get into that later, but uh, our perspectives really do paint our experiences. And believe me, I have had my fair painting of those impostery, overwhelming, miserable, shitty, not feel good types of responses. And I've also had the other, like the opposite end where it's like, oh, okay, like why not me? Like,
Mm.
so there's we can there's room to grow and to move and to like stretch and to like give ourselves some space.
I'm so happy you brought this up because I think everyone can experience that where like I'm for sure I belong here, Like, or like, why the heck didn't they hire me? Like, I know that I was a perfect fit for this job. I'm
Ugh,
overqualified for this job.
y'all.
Um,
Jen's
and
hitting
so
all my examples.
so that's like when you said before, it gives you information, what the thoughts and the emotions are from the imposter syndrome. It's giving you information into what your insecurities are and what parts of
Mhm.
yourself need to be illuminated and loved on so that you can grow through it so that you're not feeling stuck in your potential. You're able to
Mhm.
actually take that potential and harness it and again, like give yourself the life that you see, that you dream of.
Also, I really, really just love that you went to loving those parts and like loving yourself and leaning into how to take care of yourself because having insecurities is okay. And also, there is parts of you that are needing that love, that are needing that attunement, that are needing attention. Um,
Mhm.
as opposed to our maybe impulse, which is to turn away from that experience and shift into something else or to, move out of it as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
I see that we have written here buying into the imposter's ruse.
Mm.
I love this wording.
Yeah. It's so
And
easy. It's so
yeah.
easy to just um when we think about cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, um, it's where our thoughts, our feelings and emotions, sensations, and behaviors, they all occur at the same exact time. And I think
Mm,
it's so easy to buy into the ruse of the imposter syndrome because the voice of the imposter in our mind will just like throw out something, a little bit of self doubt. We may not even hear it or notice it or really like allow it to resonate.
mm.
However, we back away from what we want to do.
Yes, and I also want to tag on to this that the imposter isn't always necessarily taking things from your own head to so to say. It's also taking external experiences and exchanges and creating a narrative around them. So say
Mhm.
like you like we were talking about, you don't get into the school, that's painful, that sucks. And then you get into this one that's your top choice, you really want to, but the story is then like I don't belong, I'm not worthy. Like it begins to then take the shape of like you are not a fit. Like this is not right. And that's the ruse. And we buy into it because it's a really convincing narrative. Like it's a salesperson. Like they're up there like giving it their all. And we don't really have another voice in our head that's always advocating the opposite to be true. So we have this really strong, really loud voice saying, here's what is happening here. Like this
Mhm.
is it. They don't like you. You don't belong. You're not worthy. You're not smart. You're bad at your job. Whatever. Like there's so many things it could be. Versus the why not me?
Mhm.
What if I do belong here? Who's to say I do not?
Yeah.
I've gotten in. Like that's step one. Like that's step one to belonging here. It's like I have gotten my entry. So part of that, I think, as we were talking about, is tied to self-esteem, self-efficacy, and self-worth, which you might be like, oh, these are all the same things. Fear not, my friends. It isn't. So Jen and I both took classes together when we were in our undergraduate programs, and we were fortunate to have a lot of young professors who were really on fire for the field, really on top of their education. And one of the lessons that stands out for me was when we learned about the difference between self-esteem and self-efficacy and how these things are developed. Jen, I see a little smile happening on your face. Do you have anything that you'd like to add here?
Well, I've already talked about Dr. Alt before. Shout
Mhm.
out using your name this time because you deserve it. Um, I would really love to hear what your memory is of when we learned
Yeah.
about this.
So self-efficacy is through the trial and error of doing things. So it is showing yourself through the doing kind of a thing. Whereas self-esteem isn't necessarily based on those kinds of like solidified types of data. It's more like fluent to me. Like that's kind of how like I have taken it in. Is there anything that's coming to your mind as I'm like saying these things that could be added?
Yeah. So with self-efficacy, it's the belief that you can do what you want. Self-esteem is how you think about yourself, what you believe about yourself.
Yeah.
So, for example, I can believe that I'm a failure, but I
Mm,
also know that I can go to work every day and do my job.
yeah.
Those two things can exist at the same time, and that's the difference between esteem and efficacy. And now when we talk about self-worth, um,
Yeah.
those two collide, the self-esteem and self-efficacy, because let's think about it, right? If I inherently believe that I am a failure and I know that I can do my job well, what do you think that would say about my self-worth?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I can do things that I don't care about,
Yeah.
or I can do things that seem easy. And all of this is really from the perspective of that imposter telling you that what you're doing isn't good enough, it's not worthy enough, you're not going to get where you need to go. When you're really like, if that imposter could be given the chance to take away take away the talking stick
Yeah.
from the imposter syndrome, and you allow yourself to be embodied in where you are now, the little things that you're showing up for every day, say it's an internship, say it's the job that is helping you get to where you want to be in your career, right? It could be saving up, it could be your waitressing job, right? You wake up at 4 a.m. and you're like, this is so freaking horrible. I do not want to be here. However, that money that you got over those 3 years working there is what was your down payment on your house, right? You have no idea what that could be getting you toward. However, you just feel like you're unworthy in who you are in those moments.
Yeah. Mm, absolutely. And I think it's interesting because I think these things can be easily like overlapped, like esteem and efficacy. It makes sense that they can kind of begin to seem like they're the same thing. But I think it's really important to know that the efficacy is your belief in your capacity to execute
Mm.
the actions that you want to like get to where you want to be. So like it's something that can be built through the efforts. So like you can build up your self-efficacy by doing the things. And like Jen was
Mm-hmm.
saying, like even though it might not feel good always showing up and it might not always look the way that we might want it to, the end result is to be like, wow, like I did do that. I was so capable of doing it. And like taking that and paying it forward and like investing that into your like little self bank. And the
Yeah.
esteem is the confidence in your worth, your abilities, your morals. Like it's the beliefs as opposed to efficacy being rooted in not just a belief, but like a knowledge. Like
Mm.
belief to me feels like it could change. Knowledge feels as though something it's like you have incorporated into maybe your self esteem. Like I feel like efficacy can be incorporated into our esteem. Like it can help
Yeah.
support the other.
I have a good example of this. Let's
Bring it
say
in.
this is one that I experienced recently.
Mm,
Um, I and so you have an idea of something that you want to do. It could be like, I want to paint, I want to play piano, I want to go for a run. Oh, I'll do it later.
yeah.
Who do you think came in there? I even felt it saying it, even though it's not my current experience of like denying myself of what I know I can do and what makes me excited, what I want to do.
Yeah.
But my self esteem decided to come out and say, no. And that's exactly how I felt. I felt like a no later type of thing. And that's where the self-esteem and self-worth decide to come in and break down that efficacy. However, there is an inverse, which is really cool. You can build your self-esteem up and your self-worth up by trusting in your self-efficacy. Um, I think we've talked about this before too, earlier in our season.
Mm,
Small little things to do every day, achievable, tiny, tiny tasks that help you believe in yourself more, have more faith in your ability to align with your goals and see through a goal.
yeah.
So that could be
Yeah.
like, um, if you're depressed, making sure to brush your teeth, um, keeping makeup wipes if you're someone who wears makeup next to your bedside table so that even if you're not going to get up, if you can't get out of bed before you fall asleep, you can wash off that makeup, right? Like giving yourself those little things.
And also like the brushing the teeth, I love like you can have like little like toothbrush like things next to your bed, you can use literally a washcloth that's clean just to wipe your teeth down. Because it's not necessarily even about the tooth brushing, it's about just getting the teeth clean in some way. And that will do an effective enough job than not doing it at all.
Yeah, and
Uh,
this is a great example of it could be like what other people might see as like bare minimum. As long as you're giving yourself access to achieve what's been hard for you or what's been giving you that cognitive dissonance, that friction within your mind and your emotions and your body, that can help you build that trust in yourself. And that building that trust is what gives you the self esteem.
Yeah. So, like, know that both things take time to build. We're talking about like these voices that are happening in our head, and like, I like to think that self-efficacy voice in your head is the voice that's aligned with health and like your well-being, that's able to be like, no, I can go for a run. I'm going to do the run, or I am going to do this thing. They can like Jen was saying, really work together, and they can have a relationship where they impact the other in some way. So yeah, uh, and the nice thing about this that I wanted to talk about with ourselves is that we are inherently worthy. Like, our self-worth is not something that we have to necessarily acquire or seek outside of ourselves or search for or buy. There is worth regardless of if you're able to see it right now. That's the thing about worth. It's there even if we don't think it is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ooh,
take that.
I can go down the rabbit hole with this.
Well,
Um,
what rabbit hole? Jump.
I'm going to ease myself down
Like, I don't
so
know
I
what.
can climb back up so you don't
Okay.
like, because this could be a whole other episode. Um, but I'm thinking about attunement here. It's really important that we have an attachment figure that attunes to all of our emotions as a child in order for us to feel like we can attune to ourselves as an adult. So this could be something else that's being illuminated within an insecurity that you're experiencing that's creating imposter syndrome to exist. So this stuff can get really, really deep. So as we're going through this episode, we're talking about things from the level of education and self-understanding. And then I'm inviting you to take notes, to know when you need to take a pause, but take what you need, leave what you don't, and maybe talk to a trusted friend, support system, therapist if you need to, with the knowledge that you're gaining from today.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
um, and I see like we're kind of start easing into our brain and our body a little bit more.
Mhm.
We have a couple things here that we want to like kind of tie into this imposter syndrome idea. So Jen, concerning this, I feel like this was, something that you were hoping to flesh out. I'd love to hear where you were going with this.
Yeah. So, I kind of mentioned it before how the thoughts, feelings, behaviors all happen at the same time. What this means is when we're in our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, we only really tune into one, and then our nervous system shuts down the rest. So it's I'm a failure. Well, maybe your emotions tell you that that's not a correct thought, but you don't get to feel that. You
Hmm.
feel the numbness, the running away from, the avoidance of it, of thinking that you're a failure. So you turn a blind eye and you get to miss out on finding a deeper truth or self-recognition. That efficacy doesn't have time to come out. It's really just your self-worth or self-esteem that takes the floor. So, behaviorally, what would our self-worth, self-esteem, that imposter syndrome look like? Not applying for the job,
Yeah.
not reaching out to that friend after there could have been a disagreement.
Mm.
Physiologically, panic attacks. And then lastly, there's the emotional side, which ties into like, so we say, I feel like a failure. Cognitive behavioral therapy would say, no, you don't. You think you're a failure. How are you actually feeling?
Yeah. You think you're a failure. You're
Hmm.
thinking it.
And the
Mm.
emotions might be distrust. You could be feeling hurt, disappointed. And that's like, so uncovering those tiny little pieces can be really helpful. It's like, okay, so why are you feeling hurt? I didn't achieve a goal that I wanted to. Why are you feeling disappointed? I really thought I could do this and I didn't.
Yeah. Mm.
And again, it's giving you the information that you need. To be able to lean into how you're going to take care of yourself in these moments, what you want to be doing, right? Because it shows you, oh, actually, I'm not a failure. I'm just feeling really upset and disappointed because I had a dream and it's not being realized yet. I'll get there.
Imposter syndrome. I want to talk about how it physiologically feels because I liked your experience, like what you outlined for it, but I also wanted to like give like a more tactile expression of it. So like for me, how I experience imposter syndrome, it feels like it's like having someone sitting behind you and critiquing all the shit that you're doing in live action while you're trying to do the thing. So like it's not even like you're not doing it, like you are, but you have someone being like, "You suck, boo, you're really bad." And you're like, "Show me your face," and they won't. Or there's the other part of this experience where like you want to crawl outside of yourself. It's like almost wanting to like unzip this suit and like crawl out of you and like scurry away so that that can be left to do the thing and you can stop.
Yeah.
Jen, are either of these like descriptions landing for you?
Oh,
Totally cool.
yeah. No,
Uh,
they are. It's like the example of like when you're really nervous to give a speech, people say, "Well, imagine everyone else in their underwear." It's
yeah,
because like, oh, you look silly, right? That's how you feel like you're being silly, like you don't belong there, so you make everyone else on the same plane as you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm,
Okay. So it sounds like for you, you know the imposter, or you're able to identify it pretty well, recognize the voice or the shift within yourself
yeah.
that says, okay, I don't actually believe this. This is imposter syndrome talking to me.
Yes, like I'm able to identify that as a part. We need to recognize that the imposter is not us. What happens when we have the imposter syndrome pop up is that we begin to blend, which means that we like become one with the imposter. We are no longer able to recognize that it is like an external thing to us. Um and we believe that it is us. So we're like we are the imposter. But what if you're not the imposter? Are we able to externalize and observe this part in action? And the reason I ask this is because if we are able to begin separating ourselves from this part, and not to be angry at it, like we're not coming at this part being like, "Ugh, bro, I hate you, you suck." Because, like, what is this part gonna do if we are like mean to it? Like, what do you think is gonna happen if we start like fighting with this part, Jen?
Oh, it's gonna win.
It might not, like, who's to say even win? It's just gonna like it's really good at being angry and like being mean
Yeah.
to you and like
You're gonna have those like one of those thought tornadoes, one of those spirals where you'll try to like combat it and say, "Well, I've done this before," and then the imposter syndrome's gonna say, like, "Haha!" But you also failed at this, which is the same thing as that you said that you did, right? It's yeah, we get stuck in it.
yeah. So like what I will invite into it. So like I want to this is parts work. So let's hold on to this idea that we are not the imposter and that the imposter is a part of a like us. It's part of our system of like our being. We want to try to approach this part with curiosity. So sometimes cultivating curiosity can be hard. So I would say step 1 of like this process. Say we are able to notice this part. But to be able to get to it, we have to start with step 1 is we're going to sit with ourselves and we're going to find in, on, or around our body where this part might be. And this just noticing, just doing a scan of your body, looking in places and noticing if anything needs your attention and where we're noticing it coming up. This might take a very long time to get aware of. And notice it might not be a sensation, it might be a thought, it might be a feeling, it might be an urge, it might be an impulse, it might be like something physiological. So, like, it can present different ways, but allow yourself to notice and then focus on one at a time. So, we might then begin to focus on this imposter. How does this feel? Like, can we like can we see it? Like, can we start to flesh it out? Like, what does this imposter look like to us? And this all might take time. Like, some people find that it's really difficult to envision. Some people find that it's very like easy to envision. Like, oh my god, I already know what it looks like. I already know what it feels like. This is what it looks like. So like the really important thing I want you to notice, because all these things are going to take time, like finding them, focusing on them, fleshing them out. This is like more independent, takes time, very little, slow is fast kind of work. But I want you to notice, how do I feel towards this imposter syndrome?
Hmm.
And if we are, and like, I'm going to give you some options of how you might feel, but know that if it doesn't fall into this ballpark, it means that the second part is influencing our thoughts. So, what this means is if I'm not feeling calmness toward this part, if I'm not feeling clarity, courage, connection, confidence, creativity, compassion, or curiosity. Any of these 8 C's, but I'm really going to hone in on that curiosity and maybe some compassion, mostly curiosity. We want to be open to this part. If these things are not present, we are blended with that part and we are being influenced by it.
Hmm.
So, then what I'm going to ask you to do is, can we ask this part, be like, hey, are you able to like go outside of my mind room? I just want you to open the door. There's going to be a window you can see in, but I just need you to like step outside. See if it's willing to relax. So that's what that is asking it to do. It's asking, can we separate ourselves for a moment? You're still with me, but can you relax? And if it's not willing to relax, we might need to really sit with this part. So we're going to stop here because we're not going to be getting into, and this is IFS's deep work. If it will not relax, it might have things that we need to do, things that we're not doing. There's a reason why this part is not relaxed. So we might have to come back to this part. And oftentimes you do have to come back to this part because, like Jen said before, we are establishing a relationship with ourselves that is literally founded on lack of trust. We don't trust that we're capable of doing the things we need to do. We are fearful that we can't accomplish. Like, there's so many really big things here. There's a reason why this part is doing this job. It's
Yeah.
helping you in some way. So like that in and of itself is good to know, because these reactive parts, like this imposter syndrome is typically like a reactive type of part. They need to be felt. They need to feel like they're heard, like they're validated, and staying with them until they're willing to let us get to know like other parts of ourselves, because they're protecting us. So,
Yeah.
Jen, do you have any questions? This is a lot of stuff. I know like IFS is not necessarily your realm, so you might have some questions that could help the listeners.
Well, instead of a question, I was actually thinking I would offer what I was imagining just to see if anyone wants to, like, just like a baseline, a check in to see if they're on the right page. So I'll share with you, Ronnie, what I was learning and imagining for myself, and then you can give some direction if needed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was imagining my imposter part as myself afraid. And as we went through the exercise, when I allowed it to have a voice, it said, I don't want to disappoint the people who have supported me to get to where I am today.
Mm,
And that sounds so different than saying, I'm a failure, I'm going to fail.
yeah.
It's that you love people and you don't want to let them down.
Mm,
And then that's where it shifted to compassion. So I was fortunate enough that it went to compassion. For other people, it could have gone to a place of anger, self blame, some shame. It would have been maybe if it went that route for me, instead of I don't want to disappoint the people who have supported me, and then me wanting to be compassionate to myself. Um, it would be you're disappointing them already because you're not doing anything.
mm,
That's another way that I could have heard that same thought.
yeah. And again, if that's coming up, we know that that reactiveness is being, we're blending with the part. Like, our having those big feelings toward it is an indication that we're blended with it.
Okay, so what would you recommend someone would do next?
So when that reactive part is, you know, not relaxed. We want to inquire if it's willing to give space or if it's willing to relax. And if it's not willing to give us space to like interact and like do that work, it's going to be working directly with that part to hear them out. What is your job? What would happen if you didn't do this? How do you help us? What is your role?
Hmm.
What might you rather be doing? And these are questions it might not be willing to answer. But again, it's a willingness to keep coming to these parts. You're building a relationship with them. Like for so long, we've pushed them away, or we felt really bitter toward them because of how we feel in response to their job and what they do. We can't expect to have a relationship with them after checking in with them one time,
Yeah.
or for them to trust us, because it's like any other relationship. You have to build rapport. You have to build the bridge of like, hey, look at this is my self efficacy. This is me believing I can and me following through and showing you I can run the ship. I'm capable. We don't have to use this skill to motivate me anymore.
Hmm.
And it might not look like that. It could look different. Like all of our journeys are going to look really different. And this is like not a one done kind of thing. So that's the difficulty in some of this is it takes time. But essentially we're trying to befriend this part. Like we're trying to get to know it. We want to know about it. How did you get this job? How effective is this job? If you didn't have this job, what might you want to do? How old are you? How old do you think I am? What else do you want me to know?
Hmm.
Sometimes these parts think that we're really young, but we're not.
And what Ronnie's getting into now is like deeper into like the theory of parts work and how there's all these different roles within us, different parts of us. Um,
Different systems.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
how they interact with one another to try to help us live a safe, successful life. And sometimes, if we have gone through different traumas or experiences that lead us to have um, reluctance toward or need to be put in our place in certain things, because sometimes that realistically does happen. We do need that help to stay on the course that we're setting for our lives. Um, Sometimes they're not always helpful. They can be not kind to us and take us on a direction that's really we're not driving the car at all anymore. We're in park, we're in the passenger seat.
Yeah. They're not always helpful in a healthy way, but they're always effective.
Yeah.
They're very good at doing their jobs. So the really important question is once you get to this place, what is this part afraid of? What does it want for you? And what will happen if it stops doing its job? And this is a key question that's going to help us see any polarization that's happening here. When parts are polarized, it means that they are opposite of each other. So think of like this north and south pole. So they tend to be an overcorrection, but we all kind of experience these to some degree or another. So they're very not uncommon. We all kind of have them, but just know that it's like these seeming opposites. And the answer that they do, I really like this example of two responses that you might get in response to like, what does it fear? If I stop feeling anxious, I'm afraid that the suicidal part will take over, or it will reveal the exile that it protects. So these protector parts, what is what we're talking about. An imposter syndrome is like a critic and it protects us, and they're usually protecting all these like little precious gems that have been harmed that are holding on to really heavy burdens and stories, so like they don't want to like let you in because that's very vulnerable.
Well, I think it'd be really helpful here to also say, like, from the like a different lens, really what we're saying here. So, from the cognitive behavioral therapy lens, um, the parts are our core beliefs, and a lot of times we say, "Well, I can't just get over it. I can't just let it go and leave this belief behind me, even though I can logically say that it's not helpful." So the belief is, well, I need to
Yeah.
be really hard on myself, otherwise I will let everyone in my life down. Um, but I think it's really helpful too because if we're able to lean into what it has to say, like really push that boundary,
Yeah.
push through that dissonance that we're experiencing, it gives us the insight into what we need to help ourselves feel held by ourselves, to feel like we're capable, and to begin to trust ourselves as we step into who we are, like shift back into the driver's seat. So I'm not saying, okay,
Yeah.
cool, I'm going to go be some big hotshot
Mhm.
executive. No, I'm saying I'm just going to allow myself to be Jen and see what happens next.
Yeah.
Like I am
And
inherently not a failure. I've existed every single day. I've done it. I'm doing the thing.
yeah. It's a very interesting thing because you'll notice that these parts come up in different areas of your life. They'll have different cycles, so different things will trigger them, and you'll have different cycles of shame and impostery. Um, and it's interesting to note those as well. Like if you can start noticing when you feel like an imposter, that can be data to start noticing in what areas of my life might I have like a
Mhm.
shame cycle or might I have a imposter cycle happening.
Yeah, are you hearing it in your
Um,
thoughts, like, "Oh, I'm a loser"? Are you feeling it? Do you feel like you're an outsider, like you don't belong, like there's just something that's not right in the space? Is it
yeah,
in your behaviors? You're paralyzed and can't go to the event, or you leave right away? Are you on your phone the whole time so that
yeah.
you're, "Yeah, I'm there," but you're avoiding the interactions? Try to tune into what your
Mm.
lived experience is trying to tell you.
Yes. I love all of this. This makes me think of our actions confirming those belief systems. So, like, it's perpetuating this
Mhm.
story that we have because, like, the way that we're showing up in the space is also attuned to that story. So, like, I think of like going to the gym and like feeling like you don't belong there and you don't know what you're doing. And then you walk around in that same kind of energy. Whereas, like, what's the opposite of that is like showing up to the space, being like, there's a bunch of machines here. I'll figure it out. It's not that, like,
Yeah.
I'll get something done. There are different energies to show up to a space with. Even if that imposter syndrome is in the back of our mind, we can still show up differently. Like we can embody a different space. So it takes time. Again, separating these parts takes a very long time. Jen and I have been, Jen's been doing it through her avenues and I've been doing it through my own. Like we can all come to this through different means. But externalizing this, you are not the imposter. Like we really want to build up that healthy voice. We want to encourage that other voice to be a part of the conversation and not let the imposter
Yeah.
constantly be running the
I
ship.
mean,
Um, but I think I want to kind of move away from the parts work. I know it can be really dense. I know it's a lot of information. I don't want to like drown us all in it. So like take that, absorb it, see if there's like anything from it that like sticks and like take it. But we have this really great example that Jen has kind of cultivated for herself about the anxiety perspective. So we started talking about the purpose of fear being a protective agent. It's trying to help us, which means it's adaptive in nature. Um, and the question we have here, do you need protection from your
mm,
potential?
we'll say it again. Yeah. Do you need protection from your potential? Because when we think about
Mm,
it, we have ideas for a reason. Things spark in our mind and we're excited about it. And then that excitement is met with doubt, shame, guilt, all the reasons why it's not a good idea to do it now or do it ever, why we're going to fail. Remember, our fear
yeah,
response, our nervous system kicks in, and that's where the avoidance is coming from. So when we really break it down to its
yeah,
essence, do we need to be protected from our own potential? And we know it's our potential because it's our
mm.
idea. If we can think of it.
And this is us coming to the imposter syndrome just from a different way. So like we're and pretty much viewing it through the point of like aspirations and dreams, kind of like things that you desire and energetically are pulled toward, but fear is like a
Mhm.
deterrent for that. So like this is a different kind of imposter syndrome from like our day-to-day stuff, but it's a very much prevalent type of imposter syndrome that can like really bar us from that, what's on the other side, like what could be. It's making me think of
Mm.
risk analysis. Like we're constantly assessing for risk and making decisions with that, which can be a good thing and it can also
Yeah.
be a
It
deterrent
can
in
cause
some
us
cases.
to become stagnant. Oof. When we hear that, it sounds like it's a conscious
Mm,
choice to stay where you are. What's happening with imposter
yeah.
syndrome, it's an unconscious choice. However, that's the result. So you're sitting here, and this is the big dissonance, big friction. You have all of these dreams, aspirations, desires that you see for yourself that you want to pursue. However, you're fearful of pursuing it and you become stagnant.
Yeah. And it's the reason why we're beginning to have that friction is not because we are an imposter necessarily in the sense that like we are, but it's almost like we're an imposter because we're not willing to step into the
Yeah.
potential that we see, or the ideas that we have, like the things that are really setting our souls and our passions on
We want it
fire.
so badly, and it's like we're throwing a fire blanket over top of it and saying, "No, you can't do it.
Mm.
Why even try?"
Yeah, and just imagine how that feels. Like, imagine, like, I really want everyone to take a moment and imagine the felt sense of something that really, really sets your soul on fire, that burns your passion, that you just can think about it. It's just like immediate, like you're just attuned into it. Like you were like, and then you throw a blanket over that fire, and how that feels to feel that the small embers of a once large flame just holding on for dear life, hoping for a gust of wind to reignite them. And the crazy thing is, we are not always the gust of wind. Sometimes the gust of wind is like our relationship. Sometimes the gust of wind that helps rekindle that fire can be therapeutic. It could be this podcast. It could be lots of things.
Oh my goodness,
Um,
the relief of being able to say out loud to a trusted loved one what your imposter's voice is saying can be the release in itself that you need in order to step
yeah,
into where you want to be. Willingness. I'm so happy you brought that up, Ronnie, 'cause it's huge. Okay, great.
yeah,
I'm at this point now where I can see it and I'm going to try. You need that willingness to continue to show up. So, the avoidance, no doubt, is going to pop up every single time you step into the next step, the next step, the next step of making your dream happen.
yeah.
And it's being willing to say, no, I am choosing to not need you today.
And also, like, can we lean into the idea that this fear, again, there is utility in fear, and so, like, we can hold space for that because it kind of helps us to consider
Yeah.
things. Like, fear can really be a motivator to, like, a to
Well,
an
it
given
shows us that it's so
analysis.
important to us.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I am afraid not because I am not capable. I am afraid because this matters to me. This is something that I want and desire, and if it doesn't happen, that sucks. Like, that might feel bad. That might feel uncomfortable. And, like, of course, we want to avoid discomfort. A lot of times, what we're doing is to avoid discomfort. But can we commit to the idea of things unwrapping and unraveling in ways that we cannot futurely predict? Because a lot of this is based off these, like, ideas that we have. We're like predicting the future of what we think is going to happen when we really have no idea at all what the outcome of a situation is going to be. Like, you might just be afraid because you've not done it before, not because you can't.
Yeah,
Like, unknown's scary, and that's like okay. So, like, that could be like, we're getting into a lot there, but
I think it's great.
the duality here I think is really important to consider. Is like Jen was saying, it can be both a driving force and a brake.
Mm,
It's up to us whether it's the gas pedal or the brake, like how we're going to use it.
yeah. And it really helps us too, like, it's like a reality check. If we allow ourselves to objectively listen to the imposter's voice, it can tell us, you know what, yeah, I've been stagnant, right? That's where we know. That's where the brakes come in.
Yeah.
Lift
Hmm.
it up a little bit, maybe go like 5 miles per hour, but like tread into that zone of discomfort and listen to what it has to say. Because maybe that's gonna show you why you're not pursuing your dream, what you think is going to hold you back, what your fears are to face it. And guess what? You have 3 steps right there of, okay, I see these are my roadblocks, my hurdles. Plan to address them.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
that right there,
Mm.
by facing what your imposter syndrome is telling you, you're getting your plan, your roadmap, the insight that you need in order to pursue being who you want to be.
Mm. So this brings me to a wonderful example, and we're going to end on this example and move into our last little thing of this episode: attunement. Think about yourself and your imposter syndrome or this fear as like a tuning instrument, something that helps you to get into a tune. So think of yourself almost like a ukulele or a guitar, and we have to, sometimes you can pick them up and they are ready to be played. It's like you can step up there, there's no imposter syndrome. Like, you're just like, I know I can do this. That self efficacy is there. It's like, bling. Other times you pick it up, it's like it's just like not the right tune. It's you're like, oh god. And we're not like gonna beat up this ukulele and throw it in the garbage because we're like, you're out of tune, you shit. No, we're going to get our little tuner. We're gonna sit there, we're gonna pluck away at the strings, and we're gonna tune it so that we can play the tune that we want to. But we have to do that work. So like think of all of this as the ability to begin to tune in, to string those chords, to notice what's coming up. How does it sound? How does it feel? And notice, is my imposter syndrome holding me back and causing me a lot of suffering, like detrimental to me? Or is it helping me to consider where I'm at? Is it helping me to craft? Is it helping me to move forward? Like, what is it doing?
Mm.
Just considering that. I personally am not motivated well by meanness. So, an imposter syndrome, like a critic, isn't really very motivating for me. It's quite demotivating. So, you might be similar to that, where you're like, actually, kindness helps me. And it takes time to get there. But as always, awareness is key. Awareness is our steps.
Yeah.
So, Jen,
Yeah.
any thoughts, any
Yeah,
words?
absolutely. Oh, a lot of times, right? So what we're talking about here, imposter syndrome falls under anxiety, and a lot of times we feel that frantic energy and feeling scattered. It's hard to gather our thoughts. Um, and what we're presenting to you all here is, can we attune to them?
Yeah.
And that can be through journaling. It can be through therapy. Another more approachable way is through sound healing frequencies.
Mm-mm. Mm, mm, mm.
Um, because what this does is it'll give your energy something to grab a hold of. It so we
Yeah.
can like then tune into the frequency. One that's really great that we're going to be doing today is the heart chakra frequency. Um, and this will allow us to experience that stillness and attunement with ourselves because it's going to pull everything in, kind of like a hug around you as you allow the tone to wrap itself around you too.
Mm, mm, mm. I feel so good, like a little snug hug.
Yeah.
Nice
And if you
tones.
don't know a lot about the heart chakra, the heart space, Ronnie found a really helpful description of it. Ronnie, if you wanted to share that.
Yes, I would like to share that. So we're going into the heart space, like Jen said, and this space is about pure love and acceptance within yourself. This is where healing can take place for both ourselves and others, which is a beautiful thing. Holding heart space in your life happens through nurturing love in what you choose to witness, what you choose to listen to, and what you choose to become. And it happens when you are aligned with your values. So like this is a lot here to really take in, but know that just by like being here, just by being open to this conversation, you are already on that path wherever you might land on it. And all of this can be conversations and like little things to learn. So like your values are something that can continue to grow and expand and to like change as you do. So like let yourself lean in. Um but yeah, that's what we're doing here. So Jen, if you would please take it away, take us where we're gonna go.
Yeah, so I encourage you as we listen to these tones together, breathe. The tone is going to naturally regulate your breathing for you. So just be curious, be open, and allow yourself to find a place of alignment with the tone and then really within yourself. And if you need a little bit more guidance with your breath, try to breathe into your heart. You can imagine it like a drop of water in a still lake. Imagine that ripple and try to breathe with those ripples, breathing outward and coming back in.
Mm.
And now we'll begin.
Maybe if you find that you are zenned out right now, you begin to make your way back, taking with you whatever you took from that. Thank you, Jen, for the beautiful healing frequencies. For those of you who do not know, we will be doing more of these types of things in a more like event type of setting soon this summer. So keep an eye out as we begin to develop that. But as we, begin to send you away into your world and bid you your farewells, remember that self awareness is your compass that is always guiding you back to your center. Understanding your own rhythms is a true strength that will help you to navigate your emotions and reactions.
Mm. Join us next time as we dive deeper into the human experience. And until then, breathe, find balance, and know that you're not alone on this journey in self attunement.
Love this episode. Share it with a friend who wants to ride the waves of awareness with us.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay mindful, stay present, and keep exploring the extraordinary world within. And until then, we'll catch you on the trails.
Catch you on the trails.